Yes, welcome back. Happy New Year. What a week. Lordy, lordy. On Tuesday during the book study group, which by the way, this book study group is still going on. You can still join us. I've completely changed my approach to this book, those of you who aren't doing it. We started this thing maybe 12 weeks ago, and it's basically an entire read-through of my deeper dive book, Dreams of Light. And I've completely relaxed my kind of sprint to just get through the damn book, and have really slowed down. Too, I think most people seem to appreciate it. I do, because then I don't feel so stressed out. So we have at least another 4 months. Everything's recorded, so if you want to come join us, you can still do that. And it's definitely a lot more relaxed and playful, and I've just completely changed my MO on that. So that's happening. You can still join us. Maybe, Andy, if you can post a link to that, that'd be great. In terms of nightclub stuff, because remember, if you're new, if you haven't been to our gatherings that we're doing here today, we started this with COVID 38 weeks ago. Amazing. My intention was, we'll probably do this for 2-3 months max, but it's still alive and kicking, so why not? I'm grooving on it. And so what we do here is I basically don't prepare virtually anything, which is why I like it. I just show up. I'll have a little riff. I actually want to share with you something I wrote just this morning. That'll be my riff for today. Literally, I just wrote this morning in my book. So I'll get back to that in a second. But in terms of nightclub stuff, we're going to be completely, I wouldn't say restructuring, but launching a nightclub 3.0 version where we're behind the scenes constructing, I think, some really awesome things. So stay tuned around that. It'll probably take us another month or 2 to get this stuff implemented up and running. But because things are so healthy in the community, we're going to be adding a weekly meditation thing where I'll be guiding practitioners every week, specific to meditation. Guided meditations, a whole series of them, questions and discussion only about meditation. So that'll be offered. There's just a ton of stuff coming up, just more involvement on my part, more participation. And so we're quite psyched about that, so stay tuned. We released a couple of really great interviews. I think they're great, not because of me, but because of my guests. The one with Fariba Bogzaran, if you haven't heard that, oh my gosh, what a jewel she is. Antoine Lutz, neuroscientist, also a friend of mine, who's now in Lyon, France. Really one of the world's unique contemplative neuroscientists, blends kind of first-person, third-person approaches to mind. He's terrific. So we just launched him, I think, this week. And then my second interview with my pen pal from Baghdad, Yusuf Al-Hur. This guy's a rock star. He's so fun. He's so hip. He's so smart. He's just a cool dude. And so, oh my gosh, we talked for well over 2 hours. We almost just like could have gone the whole day. So we're about to release that one. That was just off the charts. And then in terms of like propaganda programs, January is still a little bit on the light side because I'm trying to crank out this book. I'm literally trying to write this entire book within a 2-month period, and I'm getting really close. But I have Andy's going to put a link up for a lucid dream yoga program I'm doing at a retreat center in Vermont called Karma Choling. So he'll put a post up for that. And then starting in February, March, April, that's my kind of spring teaching season, so to speak. There's a lot coming up. So more on that later. But before I turn to your questions, because that's mostly what we do here, I usually do spend a few minutes just riffing on something. And so I wanted to share with you what I literally just wrote this morning. This is part of this book that this book is really easy for me to write because I've been dealing with this material for decades. And so it's a real easy write for me. The title of this book is, Okay, I'm Mindful. Now what? Exploring the Wonders of the Mind. It's a critique. It's a great support of the mindfulness revolution, but also a critique. how mindfulness slides into muck mindfulness, the commodification of this stuff, how it's being perverted, distorted. And then more importantly, mindfulness alone is it's just a pacifier. Mindfulness will not get you enlightened. Mindfulness sedates, tranquilizes, pacifies. Mindfulness will not wake you up. Insight vipassana will, or at least can get you in that direction. So I do a critique of mindfulness, and then I list a whole bunch of things, problems around it, and then 8, 9, 10 other practices that people can do. Like, okay, now what? Well, you've got this, and you've got this, and you've got that. And so this morning, I wrote 2 sections, one on the incredible role of therapy, that therapy, in my estimation, is vastly underemployed in the meditative community, and then spiritual bypassing. And in conjunction with that, this morning I wrote this. So I'm just going to read it to you. And then if you want to talk about this or anything else, we open it wide up. So this is what I wrote this morning. Spiritual bypassing is intimate. So spiritual bypassing is this term coined by John Wellwood, my buddy who died a couple of years ago. It's basically when you use spiritual practices, meditation, and the like to bypass daily relative concerns. And those of you will know exactly where that came from, as I say in this first paragraph. And John Wellwood was a student of Trungpa Rinpoche, so he acknowledges this. Spiritual bypassing is intimately connected to spiritual materialism, a pathology detected by the meditation master Trungpa Rinpoche some 40 years ago in his amazing book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. The idea is as straightforward as it is ubiquitous. The ego is capable of converting anything for its own selfish, aggrandizing purposes. Practices like meditation that are designed to transcend the ego can be subverted into inflating the ego. Rinpoche defined it this way. So this is him. Walking the spiritual path properly is a very subtle process. It is not something to jump in naively. There are numerous sidetracks which lead to a distorted ego-centered version of spirituality. We can deceive ourselves into thinking we're developing spiritually, when instead we are strengthening our egocentricity through spiritual techniques. This fundamental distortion may be referred to as spiritual materialism. And then so in my experience, it's not a matter, along with spiritual bypassing, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to be affected by these issues. So I continue here. A series of recent social studies, these were sent to me, they were really, really interesting. Some new studies. A series of recent social studies confirms this pathology as summarized in this abstract. So this is an abstract from a paper I was sent. Quote, spiritual training is assumed to reduce self-enhancement, but may have the paradoxical effect of boosting superiority feelings. Our results, in other words, the authors of the scientific paper, our results illustrate that the self-enhancement motif is powerful and deeply ingrained so that it can hijack methods intended to transcend the ego and instead adopt them to its own service. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what spiritual materialism is. They don't, of course, attribute any of this nomenclature to Trungpa Rinpoche. So back to me. These studies show how easily meditation can be twisted from how can I be better to how can I be better than you? Have you noticed this? And then I found this article in The Guardian. This journalist, Barbara Ellen, does a summary. So this is what she writes. Her wording here is pretty cool, so I just took a couple clips from her article. You can find this if you pull up The Guardian. This article just came out like this week, I think. So this is her. Self-improvement morphs into a pious one-upmanship, a contest to become the most perceptive, enlightened, empathic, evolved, end quote. It manifests, and this is me again, it manifests in overt or covert expressions like, I want everybody to see just how wise, selfless, and mindful I really am. I'd love to see Colbert just do a whole riff on this, or Jon Stewart, or Trevor Noah. It would just be hysterical. I know there's some comedians out there. This is material for you all. So, okay, this is back to me. This is what I wrote this morning. Mindfulness meditators can easily slip into elitist or exceptionalist traps, feeling that their special meditation makes them special, or that they are somehow exempt from the messiness of everyday life. The purity, quote unquote, of meditation can predispose one to look down on the unwashed masses who don't meditate. This meditative quicksand continues to snare many practitioners. And then this Guardian writer continues. This is great. I like this wording. It would appear that the mindfulness movement is overrun by preening narcissists. Such people cling to unmeasurable and irrefutable claims about their innate superiority, such as greater insight into the human condition, deeper compassion for others, and more advanced psychic abilities. These people are sashaying in yoga pants, banging on about inner peace and the true self, smiling with sad, wise eyes at your earthbound concerns. That's like just perfect. It's absolutely so spot on. I try to do that, but back to me. Anything that has the power to cure has the power to curse. Wherever you find light, you will find shadows, and the brighter the light, the sharper the shadow. Mindfulness, subverted into McMindfulness, is just one such shadow. Pure mindfulness is a wondrous thing. However, and this is back to her, there's a global industry seeking to monetize it, turning people into self-absorbed, smug, crystal-stroking monsters. Incense-burning, crystal-smoking, gong-banging monsters, to prove they're a cut above spiritually as well as every other way. This is just so spot on. And then my last closing paragraph, and then some questions from you all. Meditative communities and an authentic teacher can help in providing corrective feedback, but not always. Sometimes the entire community slides into a codependent cult with an enabling teacher to boot. And the result is a cornucopia of transference, countertransference, projection, and a hornet's nest of unresolved psychological problems and blind spots that can bury an entire community. I won't name names, but I could name about a dozen at this point. I have witnessed these pathologies firsthand, and the disintegration of entire communities along with the masters, quote unquote, that enabled them. And then once again, and this is kind of subsumed under my little riff on therapy, once again, outside help in the form of therapy and other skillful means are invaluable in keeping things open, honest, and on track. There you go. I think this stuff is important to know about.